Bill O'Reilly had been Fox News' biggest star for 20 years, making millions of dollars and getting the highest ratings in cable news, but with just one phone call, his whole world fell apart. Today, insiders finally reveal what really happened that April morning and the secret decision that ended O'Reilly's reign for good. Bill O'Reilly was born on his family move to Long Island when he was 2 years old from Manhattan, New York City, on September 10, 1949. They lived in a new neighborhood. Some people thought Bill was making up parts of his story to make it seem more real when he talked about growing up in a working class area of Levittown. His family actually lived in nearby Westbury, not Levittown. As a child in the 1950s, Bill lived in a growing suburb of America. He went to St. Bridget Catholic School, where strict rules and tough teachers had a big effect on him. These early years gave him the strong personality and work ethic he became famous for in high school. In school, he even met Billy Joel, who would later become a famous musician. Bill remembered Joel as a hood who hung out with kids who smoked and slicked their hair back. Bill, on the other hand, was more into sports and stayed out of trouble after college. Bill's first job was as a teacher. In 1971, he moved to Miami, Florida, and taught English and history at Monor Edward Pace Catholic High School. He also helped coach the school's baseball team. Teaching in Miami put him in touch with regular people and gave him a real sense of how Bill had bigger goals, even when he was teaching. While working as a teacher, he walked into a local magazine office and told the editor he wanted to be their new movie critic. The editor was impressed by his confidence and gave him a chance. This was the start of Bill's career in journalism. In 1973, he quit teaching to follow his dream of working in the media full-time, so he went to Boston University to study broadcast journalism. Bill worked hard and wrote for many publications. While going to school, he read local newspapers like the Boston Phoenix and had classes with Howard Stern, who later became a famous radio host. Their time together at school showed how different people could go from the same place to follow very different paths. Stern went on to break new ground in entertainment, while Bill focused on serious conservative news. Bill also did an internship at a local TV station, WBZ-TV, where he learned how TV news worked behind the scenes. In 1975, he graduated with a master's degree in journalism. Bill O'Reilly's first job was as a consumer troubleshooter at WNV in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He looked into complaints from viewers, and this helped him develop the tough guy style he became famous for. But his job wasn't all serious. He also wrote jokes for a local Saturday night monster movie show called Uncle Ted's Ghoul School. This fun side of his career is something many people don't know about. Bill O'Reilly's career began in local news in Dallas, where he worked hard but always found a way to stir up trouble. Soon after starting at WFA-TV in 1977, O'Reilly made a name for himself with brave reporting. On June 21, 1977, he found out that a judge was taking bribes and won an award for investigative reporting. But his attitude got him into trouble on July 4, 1978, when his story on corruption was replaced with holiday news, and he had a big fight with his boss. Everyone at the station remembered that fight. In 1978, he moved to KMGH-TV in Denver and covered a dramatic plane hijacking at the Denver airport on November 2, 1979, staying on air for 12 hours. In February 1980, a female coworker accused him of harassment. The complaint was later dropped, but it hinted at problems that would come up again later. He then went to work for CBS TV in New York in 1980 and did a huge investigation on corrupt city marshals, which aired on May 17, 1982, and won him another Emmy. But O'Reilly couldn't stay out of trouble. On August 1, 1982, during a live broadcast, he criticized the station's weak coverage of a political scandal, which got him in trouble. Soon after, O'Reilly started working for CBS News, and his assignments were very busy. In 1983, he reported on the Civil War in El Salvador, saying that fighting had destroyed a town. But later footage showed that the town had been standing during Fulan's War. He went to Argentina after the fighting stopped on June 16, 1982, and during a protest in Buenos Aires, he said he saw soldiers shoot into the crowd with live bullets, but other reporters there said only rubber bullets were used and no one was hurt. Again, O'Reilly got into a fight with CBS in 1985, this time accusing Dan Rather of using his footage without giving him credit. This led to a heated argument, and O'Reilly quit CBS and joined ABC News. His first big story was the Challenger space shuttle disaster, which he covered from Cape Canaveral on January 28, 1986. His emotional reporting earned him a National Emmy in 1987. He was at the Berlin Wall as it started coming down and climbed on top of it to celebrate with the locals, which earned him another Emmy. Soon after, he covered a protest. He was in Chile and said he was in a war zone with live bullets flying. Later reports showed that the protest was mostly peaceful and only tear gas was used. By 1989, O'Reilly was making things difficult at ABC by criticizing the network's choices after a fight over how they covered the Exxon Valdez oil spill. He quit ABC on June 30, 1989, and later that year he became the host of Inside Edition, which he started on October 9, 1989, and quickly made the most popular news show by 1992. Over 11 million people watched O'Reilly's interview with Joey Bocco during the Amy Fierce scandal, but critics called it trashy journalism. O'Reilly also got flack in 1993 for making racially insensitive comments about the Los Angeles riots. He apologized, but it hurt his reputation. By the time he left in 1995 to study at Harvard, the show's viewership had grown by over 50%. His time there set him up for his next role as one of the biggest and most controversial figures in media at Fox News in 1996. On October 7th, he made a big career move when he joined the brand new Fox News channel at the age of 47. At the time, CNN was the most popular cable news network, and starting a conservative news channel seemed like a risky idea. Roger Ashes, the CEO of Fox News, created the network and wanted O'Reilly to be one of the main hosts. O'Reilly had been the host of a tabloid-style show called Inside Edition, and some people didn't think he was serious enough for news, but ALS thought O'Reilly had something special he could bring to the job. Fox News started out with only 17 million subscribers, a lot fewer than CNN. O'Reilly's first salary was $1 million a year, and he worked in a small studio in New York City. Things weren't always easy. There were technical issues, and O'Reilly sometimes had to think quickly and keep talking when things went wrong. But his show, The O'Reilly Report, quickly became popular. Within 6 months, it had 228,000 viewers every night, which was a big deal for a new channel when the show first aired. It began to air at 6 p.m., focusing on breaking news. O'Reilly saw that people liked his strong opinions, so he started to share more of his own. In 1998, the show was renamed The O'Reilly Factor. A friend of O'Reilly suggested the name, saying that Reilly himself was what made the show special. Around this time, the show went to the 8 p.m. in 2004. O'Reilly used the phrase, "Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone," which became a famous catchphrase. The show also started with a popular segment called Talking Points Memo, where O'Reilly gave his take on the day's biggest stories. By 2001, The O'Reilly Factor was the most watched cable news show, and it stayed there for 16 years. In 2009, it had its best year with 3 million people watched O'Reilly every night, and by 2016, he was making $20 million a year. What set O'Reilly apart from other hosts was his confrontational style. At first, he was more laid back, but he quickly learned that heated arguments brought in more viewers. By 1998, O'Reilly was known for tough interviews. One of his most famous moments happened in 2003 when he talked to Jeremy Glick, whose father died in the 9/11 attacks. The conversation got so tense that O'Reilly cut Glick's microphone. Moments like these were controversial, but they got people to watch O'Reilly's show. He would interrupt guests, wave them off with his hands, and even say cut his mic when he thought someone was avoiding his questions. Not everyone liked his style, but it worked by 2009. His confrontational style was so well known that studies even tracked how often he used tactics like calling people names. The show's popularity kept growing. In 1997, it had 297,000 viewers per night. By 1998, that number had nearly doubled. After the 9/11 attacks, shows like The O'Reilly Factor got even more viewers. In November 2001, they beat CNN's Larry King Live for the first time with 2.3 million viewers compared to King's 1.9 million viewers. From that point on, Fox News became the leader in cable news, and by 2006, Fox was making more money than CNN and MSNBC put together. O'Reilly's audience wasn't just conservative. About 30% of his viewers were Democrats or independents. At its peak, the show made Fox News about $100 million a year. During this time, Bill O'Reilly began hosting the radio show The Factor on September 9, 2002. It was a 2-hour show that aired every weekday and quickly became a huge hit with over 3.26 million listeners across 400 radio stations. O'Reilly brought his sharp, confrontational style from TV to the radio, which made the show exciting for listeners. He often argued with callers and guests. One memorable moment happened in 2004 when a caller accused him of supporting war, to which O'Reilly angrily replied, "You want the terrorists to win?" and cut the call. Even though the show was very popular, it had problems. In 2006, O'Reilly said some hurtful things about a sexual assault victim, and some advertisers stopped supporting the show. However, the Radio Factor stayed strong and was one of the top 10 radio shows in the country by 2008. It was making $10 million a year, and O'Reilly added short radio segments called Radio Factor Minute that aired on 600 stations, making him even more famous after the show ended. O'Reilly didn't just write radio shows, he also wrote books that were huge hits. His first big book, The O'Reilly Factor, The Good, the Bad, and the Completely Stupid in American Life, came out in 2000 and stayed on bestseller lists for 14 weeks. Then, in 2011, he started his Killing series with Killing Lincoln, which sold 1 million copies in 3 months. Every new book in the series, like Killing Kennedy, Killing Jesus, and Killing Patton, became a #1 hit. Before 2015, the series had sold over 8.5 million copies. But not everyone liked the books. In Killing Jesus, O'Reilly said the idea came to him in a dream in the middle of the night. Some people praised him, while others made fun of him. In Killing Kennedy, O'Reilly said he was at a man's suicide, but that claim was later disputed. Despite this, the books kept selling, and by 2014, Killing Patton alone had sold 1.5 million copies, making it the best-selling nonfiction book of the year. O'Reilly also became a well-paid public speaker, making up to $100,000 for a single event. His speaking tours, like the Bold Fresh Tour with comedian Dennis Miller in 2010, made over $10 million. But he was always in trouble. In 2016, he said that some people wanted to destroy the Electoral College to take power from the white establishment, which caused outrage. In 2015, he shocked an audience by saying he was on an Al-Qaeda mission. Hitless. After leaving Fox News, he went on a speaking tour with Donald Trump in 2021 that made him $7 million but got him flack for not selling many tickets and being soft on Trump. One of the most famous incidents happened on September 13, 1993, during a taping of Inside Edition. A teleprompter malfunction made things confusing, and O'Reilly didn't know what "play us out" meant, which meant ending the show with a Sting song. With each take, he got more and more angry until he finally lost it. His face turned red and his voice got so loud it could be compared to a vacuum cleaner. The 17-person crew was shocked, and producer Mary Duffy later called it terrifying. The clip was kept secret for 15 years, but it was leaked in 2008 and went viral on YouTube, getting over 13 million views in a week. The phrase, "We'll do it live," became a meme and was even used on merchandise. O'Reilly later said he had 47 takes that day and blamed technical problems, but the moment. Many people still remember his outbursts, but O'Reilly also had a lot of public feuds. One of the longest was with Keith Olbermann from MSNBC. It started when Berman made fun of something O'Reilly said about World War II, and they went after each other on their shows for 7 years. O'Reilly called Olbermann names, and he called O'Reilly the worst person in the world 42 times. Another feud started when Franken wrote a book criticizing O'Reilly in 2003. Yelled at Franken, "Shut up, you had your 35 minutes," in front of 100 people at a book expo. Fox News sued Franken, but the lawsuit didn't go anywhere. O'Reilly also had fights with politicians. One famous instance was when he argued with Barney Frank about the financial crisis in 2009 during an interview. O'Reilly accused Frank of lying, and Frank replied, "The problem with your show is you start ranting and I have to look as bad as you to respond." Millions of people watched the clip. Online, O'Reilly's interview style also caused a lot of controversy. In 2003, he talked to Jeremy Glick, whose father died on 9/11. During the interview, O'Reilly yelled at him, told him to shut up, and eventually cut off his microphone. Many viewers were outraged, saying it was disrespectful to the son of a 9/11 victim. In 2004, NPR's Terry Gross interviewed O'Reilly about his feud with Al Franken. O'Reilly accused Gross of being unfair and ended the interview early. These incidents made O'Reilly look hostile and unwilling to answer tough questions. He also used ambush journalism, in which his team confronted people without warning. For example, in 2009, his producer confronted journalist Amanda Turkle near her home because she had written something negative about O'Reilly. Turkle later said it felt intimidating. Many people called this harassment. O'Reilly defended it by saying it held people accountable. In 2004, Andrea Mouse, a producer on The O'Reilly Factor, accused O'Reilly of using ambush journalism. Bill O'Reilly of harassment, saying he made unwanted advances and harassed her for 4 years. Makis worked for O'Reilly from 2000 to early 2004 and came back later that year for a short time. In her lawsuit, she described disturbing behavior, such as explicit phone calls where he pressured her to talk about her sexual fantasies. She even said she had recorded some of these calls. In one call, O'Reilly talked about using a foul thing on her, but it sounded like he meant a loofah. Makis also said that O'Reilly called her late at night and sounded like he was touching himself. He told her strange personal stories, like how he lost his virginity to a flight attendant when he was 33. During a work dinner, he allegedly suggested a threesome with her and her friend. Makis said that O'Reilly used his power to scare her, telling her that if she ever reported him, he would make her regret it. Right before Makis made her lawsuit public, O'Reilly and Fox News sued her and her lawyer, saying she was trying to demand $60 million to keep quiet. This made the case even more heated and messy, with both sides fighting hard in public. It quickly became a national story, with people talking about harassment at work and the power of big names like O'Reilly. Just 2 weeks after the lawsuit, O'Reilly and Makis settled. She got about $9 million, which was a lot of money at the time. The settlement included a rule that Mouse couldn't talk about the case in public. Both sides said there was no wrongdoing, but O'Reilly said Mouse did. Still, he denied everything he said and said he only settled to keep his family from being embarrassed on his show. He said he was being unfairly attacked because of his fame. This wasn't O'Reilly's only case of sexual harassment. On April 1, 2017, the New York Times published an investigation that showed his history of settlements. Reporters Emily Steele and Michael S. Schmid, who later won a Pulitzer Prize for their work, interviewed many current and former Fox employees. Even though the women involved signed confidentiality agreements, news employees were able to find out that O'Reilly had paid at least $13 million to settle 5 cases between 2002 and 2016. The largest settlement was $9 million to Andrea Macris, a producer who said O'Reilly made offensive phone calls and comments. Another settlement in 2016 was for Juliette Hui, who said O'Reilly pursued her romantic interest Al and retaliated when she said no. Other cases involved verbal abuse and unprofessional behavior. Rachel Whitley Bernstein sued O'Reilly for $1,500,000 in 2002, saying he yelled at her in front of her co-workers. These claims painted a troubling picture of O'Reilly's behavior. For example, Andrea Moss said he made inappropriate calls and threatened her with serious consequences if she reported him. Juliette Hudd's case involved claims of career retaliation, and other women said he verbally bullied them at work, creating a hostile environment. Despite the serious nature of these claims, Fox News, at first, the network's parent company, released a statement defending O'Reilly on the same day the New York Times report came out. They said they had talked to O'Reilly about the claims, but they said they were personal issues that he had resolved. The public's response was swift and intense. Within days, over 50 major companies, including Mercedes-Benz and BMW, pulled their ads from the O'Reilly Factor. By April 6th, the show's number of national ads had dropped from 33 to 17. Many companies said they couldn't support the show under the circumstances. The financial impact was huge. Fox News lost millions of dollars in advertising revenue, as many companies pulled their ads from both O'Reilly's show and the network as a whole. Protests also broke out. On April 18, 2017, a large crowd gathered outside of Fox News' headquarters in New York City, calling for O'Reilly to be fired. Activist groups organized a petition, and famous people joined the protests. Online campaigns forced advertisers to stay away from the controversy, which hurt Fox News' finances even more. On April 11, 2017, Bill O'Reilly abruptly ended his show, The O'Reilly Factor, saying he would be going on vacation and would be back on April 24. This seemed normal at first, but it happened during a growing sexual harassment scandal, and people quickly started to question the timing. Just days earlier, the New York Times reported that O'Reilly and Fox News had paid $13 million to a woman who accused him of sexual harassment. More than 50 advertisers, including big names like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, pulled their ads from O'Reilly's show, which was Fox News' biggest moneymaker. His announcement came after losing over a dozen advertisers in just one day. There were more signs that this wasn't a normal vacation. O'Reilly had taken a similar break the year before, but this time it felt different. Different sources said he had planned to return on April 18th, but ended up staying away longer. As the scandal got worse, many people thought that Fox News was using the vacation to figure out what to do next. Behind the scenes, the Murdoch family, who owned Fox News, had to make a tough choice. Rupert Murdoch wanted to keep O'Reilly because of his success, but his sons James and LaShawn Murdoch thought that O'Reilly had to go because of the growing number of accusations and advertisers leaving. Things were made even more complicated by the fact that O'Reilly had just signed a new 25-year contract with Fox a few months earlier. $1 million a year. The contract let them fire him if new allegations came up, but they might have to pay him a lot of money if they did. While the Murdochs talked, protesters gathered outside of Fox's headquarters. A plane even flew over with a banner calling for O'Reilly to be fired. Fox hired a law firm to look into the claims. The tipping point came when it was revealed that O'Reilly had secretly filed another harassment claim in January 2017 for $32 million. This was shocking even to reporters. The size of the settlement and the fact that it was kept secret during contract talks made it impossible for O'Reilly to defend his position. On April 19, 2017, 21st Century Fox announced that Bill O'Reilly would not be returning to Fox News. The statement was only 42 words long and said that O'Reilly and the company had agreed to part ways after a careful review of the allegation. This ended O'Reilly's 21-year reign at Fox News, where he had been the face of the network and dominated ratings with his show. $6,200,000 in advertising revenue in just the first quarter of 2017. So his firing was a big deal. The announcement came right before a Fox board meeting, which was planned, and O'Reilly was photographed shaking hands with Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square while on vacation in Italy. He seemed to have no idea that he had been fired back in New York. Fox quickly changed its lineup, and Tucker Carlson took over O'Reilly's 8:00 p.m. show slot, and the 5 changed to 9 p.m. In a statement later that same day, O'Reilly defended himself, saying he was proud of his 20 years at Fox News and that the accusations against him were baseless. He did not apologize or address any specific accusations, instead portraying himself as a victim of false accusations. A few days later, he started a podcast and told listeners he believed the truth would eventually come out. Months later, in October 2017, O'Reilly's anger reached a boiling point in an interview where he blamed God for not protecting him from the scandal. He said what he and his family had been through was horrible, and he didn't seem to be taking responsibility for the accusations even 6 months after he was fired. O'Reilly stayed defiant, blaming others for his fall while fighting to get over the scandal.